The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and rain. Neon lights trembled above the doorway as Naomi Johnson stirred, an IV line taped to her hand and a heart monitor blinking a steady green pulse. Her phone, face down on the tray table, buzzed again and again until a nurse flipped it over with a worried glance. A live stream filled the screen. A groom in a crisp navy tuxedo stood beneath a white archway draped with hibiscus and palm fronds. The camera panned, catching his side profile. Even through the pixelated feed, Naomi knew that jaw, that watch. That way he tilted his head as if a private joke lived in his smile. Malcolm Cole, her husband. Beside him, in a glittering silver Geel, a woman laughed into the mic the officiant held. The caption scrolled, "Hat Coal Union, Lagos today." Guests clapped. A spray of rose petals fell. The officiant said words the poor speaker couldn't quite hold, but the sentence that did cut through was a blade. "Do you, Malcolm Cole, take—" The nurse, a soft-eyed woman named Jumoke, reached for the phone, but Naomi's hand rose first, trembling as she ended the stream. The rain pressed harder against the window. Somewhere a generator coughed and resumed its growl. The room was both too loud and too quiet. The door opened. Malcolm stepped in, undoing his cufflink like he'd just finished a meeting. A thin sheen of rain glossed his shoulders. A torn white ribbon clung to the cuff of his tuxedo. There was lipstick on his jawline, a shade Naomi knew was not hers. Behind him stood a woman with a clipboard from the billing office. Her expression the learned neutrality of someone who had watched too many families break and had learned not to blink. "You look awake," Malcolm said. He didn't move closer, as if the air between them might soil the tux. "Good. Saves us all time." Jumoke moved instinctively toward Naomi, but the billing woman shook her head gently. "Please," the woman murmured to the nurse. "This won't take long." Naomi blinked, the room tipping. "What is this?" Her voice rasped like unused paper. "Why did you—" "I'm transitioning," Malcolm said, like he was discussing a contract. He set a manila envelope at the foot of the bed. "I've filed for annulment on grounds of deception. You misrepresented your status. I can't pay for this hospital any longer. They'll be asking you to sign for your own bills by tomorrow." "Deception?" Naomi whispered. The word floated, absurd, between the drip and the beeping machine. He looked past her, at the muted TV in the corner where evening news crawled across a blue bar. "Let's not make it ugly," he said. "You'll get a few weeks in your mother's flat until you find your feet. Amara and I—" "Amara," Naomi repeated. The new bride's name felt foreign in her mouth, gritty like sand. "You married her, while I'm here." "Life moves," he said softly, as if comforting a child who'd lost a toy. "You'll be fine." Jumoke, voice cool and clear, asked, "Sir, are you authorizing discharge against medical advice?" "I'm authorizing responsibility transfer," Malcolm said, tapping the envelope with 2 fingers. "There's a notice inside. The hospital will handle the rest." He turned, the ribbon fluttering to the floor. For a moment his eyes caught Naomi's, dark, familiar, 1,000 shared mornings compressed into one glance, then slipped away. The billing woman followed him out. The door sighed shut. Naomi gazed at the ceiling panels until the edges blurred. Jumoke pressed a cool cloth to her forehead. "Breathe slowly," the nurse said. "Count with me." Naomi counted. 1, 2, 3. Rain on the window. 4, 5, 6. The monitor steadied. When she could sit again, she touched the envelope like it might burn. Her thumb found the seam and split it. Inside, a single page. A printed notice of separation, half a paragraph of legal phrases, an e-signature line for acknowledgement of receipt. On the bottom corner, a smear of rose-petal pink lipstick, as if the paper had been decorated by accident in the celebration. Jumoke clucked her tongue. "Men," she said, with the careful scorn of someone who knew the word carried too many stories. "Do you have family we should call?" Family. The word was a room with missing walls. Naomi's mother, Diana Johnson, lived in Atlanta in a two-bedroom with red curtains and hand-sewn Bible verses on the wall. She had cousins in Maryland, a grandmother's sister in Ibadan, friends in both places who had learned to stretch love across oceans by voice note and prayer. But there were no fathers left, no brothers near. Naomi's phone contained the map of her life. Right now, it showed only the echo of a celebration she had not been invited to attend. "I'll call," Naomi said. The call to Atlanta rang into the soft void of voicemail. Naomi left a message she didn't remember recording. She stared at the rain as it collected, then fled the glass endlessly. She had not seen the storm coming. Not like this. Back when she and Malcolm began, there were thunderstorms that felt like movies, Atlanta summer storms with lightning that sketched trees on the horizon. He had found her under a broken awning outside a community health fair, the hem of her skirt dark with rain, pamphlets pressed to her chest. He had offered his jacket and a laugh that seemed to promise, "You'll never be cold again." She was 27, bright, building a small sanitation nonprofit that helped clinics in Lagos and Port Harcourt access low-cost sterilization kits. He was 32, quick, charming, entrepreneurial, the word he wore like a suit. He said he understood maps and markets. He said they could build something global. They built a wedding first. A courthouse one in Fulton County for the papers, and a Yoruba blessing later in Surulere for the elders, where old women danced until their head wraps came loose, and Malcolm's uncle sprayed Naira notes that stuck to the sweat on people's foreheads. Naomi's mother video-called from Atlanta and cried, happy and afraid. "Hold each other," she'd said. "Storms, you know, storms you don't." They moved between Lagos and Atlanta, between grant proposals and pitch decks. Naomi read every contract Malcolm asked her to glance at, though he waved her off. He dealt in logistics, he said. He needed her signature for a company mailbox, an apartment lease, a business bank account just temporarily since your credit is stronger. She signed without fear. That is how trust looks when you still believe you're two souls walking in one direction. Then the project in Ajagunle went bad. A shipment of sterilization wrap got stuck in customs. A partner clinic lost a donor. Naomi flew back and forth until her body folded into exhaustion. One night, 3 weeks ago, under the blue light of her laptop, she fainted. When she woke, there were wires on her chest, and Jumoke was telling her gently that stress is a thief. The world would wait. She should rest. Malcolm visited once. He brought flowers the color of stop signs and a small, expensive perfume she didn't use. He stood beside the window with his hands in his pockets and told her about a new investor. "We're close," he said, eyes bright. "Close to breaking out." She had believed him. She had said she was proud. Now the live stream had ended. Someone else wore his ring. A soft knock thudded at the door. Jumoke frowned. "After visiting hours," she said, but her caution softened when a young man peeked in, rain in his hair, glasses slipping down his nose. He wore a navy suit a size too big and clutched a leather folder like a life vest. "Naomi Johnson?" he asked. "Mrs. Cole," Jumoke snapped on reflex. The young man's face pinched with knowledge he didn't want to carry. "Naomi Johnson," he repeated more gently. "My name is Kelechi Obi. I work with A.O. and Partners, a firm in Victoria Island. We've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. Your emails bounced. Your husband's number kept redirecting us." Naomi sat up a little straighter. "Why?" Kelechi closed the door behind him as if danger waited in the corridor. He drew out a document thick with tabs and set it on her table. "I'm here because of Ms. Mariam Adebayo," he said. Naomi's mind flashed to the small, fierce woman who'd run the mobile maternal clinic in Ijora Badia like a ship's captain steering through storms. Mariam had died last year after a sudden illness, leaving a hole in every street where her van used to park. Naomi had grieved quietly, lighting a candle that she forgot to blow out until the wax had drowned it. "She named you," Kelechi said, "as her successor and beneficiary in a trust tied to her holdings in Bluewell Tech and a land portfolio in Badagry. There have been developments, an acquisition, and a government buyback. The trust matured on the 1-year anniversary of her death. It passes to you, contingent on a final authorization before midnight tomorrow." Naomi's mouth opened. No sound. Kelechi pushed his glasses up. "The authorization must be made in person with ID, not by proxy. We tried your Maryland cousin for a temporary power of attorney and were told you were in hospital. When we called your husband to arrange a courtesy car, he—" Kelechi glanced down at the paper, the way people look down to avoid looking up. "He told us you were not competent to sign. He submitted a notice today, petitioning the court to appoint him as your guardian for the purpose of assets management." Jumoke made a sound like a kettle coming to boil. Naomi's pulse hammered and seemed to slide out of rhythm, then corrected, bright green spike turning steadier on the monitor. "What assets?" Naomi asked, voice thin. Kelechi opened the folder to the summary page. Bluewell Tech's logo sat like a small, patient animal in the corner. A line of numbers cut across the paper like a river. "As of 3 p.m. today," he said, "the trust valuation is $80 million. The rain stopped all at once. The silence afterward roared. Naomi stared at the numbers until they separated into meaningless shapes, then knit back together into a reality that rejected itself. She had spent so long stretching budgets, begging for discounts on clinic supplies, reposting donation links at midnight, that she no longer believed in numbers with that many zeros. She felt absurdly like a child promised the moon for Christmas and unable to ask where to put it. Kelechi lowered his voice. "I don't think your husband knows the full picture. I think he suspects something and is moving preemptively. We have a driver downstairs. We can take you first thing in the morning to sign, but—" He paused, listening, as if to an invisible court of consequences. "But there is already a motion scheduled at 9 a.m. to evaluate your capacity. If he wins, you will not be allowed to sign. He will." Jumoke's hand tightened around the bedrail. "No," she said, soft but adamant. "Not while she is breathing and speaking." A key turned in the corridor. Voices pressed close, male voices, officious, carrying hard consonants. The door swung inward. Malcolm stepped in again, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. The billing woman hovered behind, her face apologetic. Malcolm's smile did not reach his eyes. "Naomi," he said, "you've had visitors. Good. We have too." He lifted a paper where a red stamp glared across the top. "Emergency evaluation order," he announced. "For your own safety." Kelechi moved instinctively, placing himself between Malcolm and the bed. "That's not valid without a concurrent medical certification," he said, words quick, precise. "And this facility has not—" Malcolm's gaze slid to the folder on the tray. He saw the Bluewell logo. The smile vanished. Something colder, older, shifted behind his face. Rainwater dripped from the officer's cuff onto the linoleum. The heart monitor counted time and courage. "Counsel," Malcolm said, velvet gone from his voice. "Step aside." Naomi lifted her chin, though her hands shook. The room shrank to the doorway, to the officers, to the stamp on the paper, to the folder with its river of zeros, to a single simple choice that did not feel simple at all. Jumoke reached for the call button. The lights flickered. And then, from the hallway, a second voice called her name. Clear, urgent, carrying a promise and a threat in the same breath. "Ms. Johnson, the judge is on the line. If you can stand and speak for yourself right now, we can block the order. but you have 60 seconds. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The rain stilled outside, as if the clouds were listening. Then Jumoke pressed the bed control, and the headrest rose with a whir.
"Stand," the nurse whispered. "Lean on me."
Naomi swung her legs over the edge, IV tugging, paper gown rustling. The floor was cold. Kelechi held the leather folder tight against his chest, eyes on the officers. Malcolm folded his arms like a judge who had already decided the case. The billing woman, Ada with the soft eyes, hovered by the door, guilty and worried at once.
"I didn't know,"
she mouthed to Naomi.
"I can stand,"
Naomi said, and her voice surprised her. A little stronger than her hands felt. Jumoke slid a walker toward her. Naomi gripped it and pushed up, knees quivering, back straight. Kelechi fumbled out his phone and tapped a button. He put the call on speaker. A clear, clipped female voice filled the room, riddled with Lagos traffic sounds in the background. "This is Magistrate Okoro on an emergency consult. Ms. Johnson, are you present and able to speak?"
"Yes, Your Honor,"
Naomi said. Her throat tightened. She swallowed.
"I am present."
"State your name and confirm you are here of your own will."
"Naomi Johnson. I'm here, of my own will."
"Do you understand that an emergency order has been filed asking the court to appoint a temporary guardian over your medical and financial decisions?"
"I understand,"
Naomi said. The officers shifted. Malcolm's jaw flexed. "On what grounds do you oppose?" Naomi's eyes went to Malcolm's face, familiar as a childhood street, strange as a city you've only seen on postcards. She inhaled. "I am not incapacitated," she said, each word careful. "I am lucid and able to make decisions. I have counsel present. I have an urgent legal matter that requires my signature before tomorrow midnight. If the court appoints a guardian, that person will benefit at my expense." "Who is the petitioner?" the magistrate asked, though she likely knew. "Malcolm Cole," Kelechi supplied, "claiming spousal duty. He arrived with officers and a document stamped but not certified by a physician here." Jumoke stepped forward, chin lifted. "Your Honor, I am the attending nurse on this floor. There is no medical certification for incapacity in this file. Ms. Johnson is alert, oriented, and speaking. Her vitals are stable." There was a thin pause, the court's version of a raised eyebrow. In the hall, someone rolled a cart past, wheels squeaking, the hospital's heartbeat still going on, unconcerned with the drama in room 12. "Mr. Cole?" Okoro asked, voice flat. Malcolm kept his gaze on Naomi. "Your Honor, my only concern is for Naomi's well-being. She has been under extreme stress. She's been fainting. She confuses dates. Look at her," he added, palms open. "In a gown, on a walker." "I am looking," the magistrate said, "and I am hearing her voice." Kelechi slid a sheet to Naomi, tapping a highlighted paragraph. "Speak this," he mouthed. Naomi steadied herself, letting the walker carry a bit more of her weight. "Your Honor, I request an emergency protective order instead, preventing any person, including Mr. Cole, from interfering with my travel, medical care, or communication with my counsel until after I sign the documents tied to the Mariam Adebayo Trust. Additionally, I request that any hospital staff ignore instructions from anyone who is not me or my designated counsel or mother." Malcolm blinked, a fraction too slow. "Mariam? Who?" "Motion heard," Okoro said. "Mr. Cole, the law does not allow you to profit from an appointment you seek under color of care. I am denying the emergency guardianship petition. I am granting Ms. Johnson a temporary protective order for 72 hours. Officers, you will not remove Ms. Johnson from this facility unless she agrees. Nurse, you will document that she is lucid and understands. Counsel, file the written request by end of day." The officer nearest Malcolm shifted his weight, then took a small step back, no longer a wall, just a person in a uniform with damp cuffs. Ada let out a breath. Malcolm's smile returned, brittle around the edges. "Of course," he said softly, "if that's what she wants." "It is," Naomi said, and felt beneath the fear a small ember of heat that might be called courage. The call clicked off. For a second, everyone looked at each other as if the room had changed shape. The storm outside broke again, light rain tapping the sill. Kelechi was the first to move. "We leave at 6 a.m., he said hurriedly. "Earliest we can beat traffic. Miss Johnson, do you have valid ID?" "In my purse," Naomi said, nodding to the closet. "And my U.S. passport with the charge nurse." "I'll get them," Jumoke said, already sliding away, a cloud of calm efficiency in motion. Malcolm's eyes tracked every movement. "You're making a mistake, Naomi," he said, lowering his voice to that intimate register he used when convincing her to sign something late at night. "You don't know this world. You don't know her holdings. It's sharks and suits and papers with fine print. Let me handle it." "I handled things long before you," Naomi said. "I can read. I can sign my own name." He stepped closer, dropping his voice. "You think I left you? I cut a deal that would have lifted us both. But you—" He broke off, the mask slipping. "You never saw the size of the game. You thought small." Naomi felt a sadness so old it had turned to glass. "Small is what keeps babies alive in a clinic with one generator," she said. "Small is what lets a nurse stretch 10 syringes to last 12 mothers. If that's small to you, then I'm proud of it." He flinched. His phone buzzed. He glanced down. A message preview bloomed. "Amara. Press asking if ceremony legal. Call me." Kelechi saw it too, eyes flicking quick. "Legal?" he said almost to himself. "Interesting." Ada returned with a clipboard. "We need a signature acknowledging the discharge plan," she said to Naomi gently. "Not discharge tonight, just your plan. And there's a note here I didn't understand. It appears your insurance approved a private room upgrade yesterday under your maiden name, but the request didn't come from you." Naomi frowned. "My maiden name?" "Johnson," Ada said. "But the form says Johnson Cole. It came with a U.S. billing address in Atlanta." Kelechi's mind worked the thought like a knot. "If someone used a hyphen you never adopted," he said, "it might suggest fraud in other filings. If they presented themselves as your legal agent to insurers, they might also have tried to present themselves to the trustees." Malcolm's face hardened. "You are fishing." Jumoke slipped back in, placing the passport and ID in Naomi's hand like holy relics. "Lock these in your bag," she said. "Sleep with the bag in your bed if you have to." "I'm not sleeping," Naomi said, and realized she meant it. Not with the clock ticking, not with the rain trading whispers with the city. She would rest, perhaps, but not sleep. Kelechi flipped through the trust summary. "There is a condition here," he said, voice lower. "It's unusual. Mariam put clauses to keep the money aligned with her values. It says the beneficiary," he looked up, "must sign a public pledge to continue the maternal health work in underserved communities for a minimum of 5 years. If the beneficiary is under any coercive marital arrangement or financial guardianship by spouse or spouse's agent, the trust freezes and is reassessed." "Coercive marital arrangement," Naomi repeated. The word scraped the back of her tongue. "It means if your marriage is being used to control your decisions, the money waits," Kelechi said. Mariam had seen too many women lose what was theirs to somebody else's cleverness. She wrote this to protect your voice. Malcolm took a step back, the way someone does when they suddenly see a pit where they thought there was a path. For a second his eyes weren't cold. They were calculating. "That's lovely," he said tightly. "But public pledge? That means attention, press, questions. You think you can stand up there? Naomi imagined a podium, microphones, cameras. Not for donor selfies, not for an award night in a hotel ballroom, but for a declaration she had not planned to make. She imagined mothers from Makoko and Ijora and West End Atlanta watching on cracked screens, whispering, "Is that Naomi? The girl from the clinic? Talking with her whole chest?" She imagined her mother, red curtains and all, leaning forward, whispering, "Hold your ground." "I can," Naomi said. The officers cleared their throats. "Ma'am," one said, gentler now, "if you need us to escort anyone out, say the word." "I'll go," Malcolm said, smoothing his lapels, resetting the performance. "Enjoy your night. Think about what you're inviting. Paper loves fire." He turned. At the door, he paused. "Oh," he added casual, "one more thing. Since we're sharing news. Amara is pregnant." The room tilted. Kelechi kept his face neutral, but the fact landed like a new weight on the table. Ada's mouth opened, then closed. Jumoke's eyes flashed. Malcolm smiled without warmth. "You'll understand my urgency." He left, officers trailing. The door clicked shut like a period at the end of a lie. Silence settled, interrupted only by the soft hum of machines and the hiss of tires outside. Kelechi pulled in a breath. "Pregnancy or not," he said, "it changes nothing about your right to sign. It may change his appetite for risk." Naomi sat, the walker in front of her like a small fence. She glanced at the Blue Well logo again and felt that strange mixture of awe and anger braid together. She would sign. She would pledge. She would make Mariam proud. She would make herself proud. But the path between here and 6 a.m. felt like a street where lights kept going out. Ada slipped a folded item from her pocket. "A courier dropped this earlier," she said. "No return address. I held it because it looked personal." Naomi unfolded it. Inside was a photograph. Old, slightly bent. It showed Mariam and a younger man standing beside a white van with Hands of Mercy painted on the side. The man's face was half-turned, laughing. He wore the same watch as Malcolm. Naomi's breath caught. On the back, in Mariam's looping hand, a line. "If you ever doubt who he is, look for the lake behind his eyes. Lagos, 2018. Kelechi leaned in. "That's not Malcolm," he said slowly. "That's his cousin, Chike. The one who handles shell companies. The one who—" He stopped, eyes widening. "If the man behind Amara's marriage is Chike, not Malcolm, then the ceremony might be a sham to shield assets. And if Chike has been signing with your hyphenated name to insurers, then—" The door handle turned again, sudden and soft. Everyone looked up. A woman in a rain-darkened silver geal eased in, face tired, makeup smudged by weather and nerves. She shut the door behind her and pressed her back to it, as if keeping the world out. When she lifted her head, her eyes did not hold triumph. They held fear. "Naomi," she said, voice shaking. "Please. I need to tell you something before he does. The wedding," she swallowed. "The wedding wasn't for love. It was a cover. And if you don't leave with your lawyer by 4 a.m., they will move you to a private ambulance and make you sign over everything while you're sedated." Jumoke stepped forward, bristling. "Who are you to bring this into my ward?" The woman touched the wall like she needed it to stand. "My name is Amara," she said, "and I think the man you call your husband just made me his next target." She took a breath that trembled all the way through. "And I am not pregnant." For a few seconds, silence hung like fog.
Only the rain's soft percussion filled the room. Everyone's eyes locked on Amara, the woman who hours earlier had been dressed as a bride under an arch of flowers. Now she looked drenched and terrified, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, the sequins of her silver gown dulled by rain and regret. Naomi steadied herself, leaning slightly on the walker. "You," she said, voice low but cutting through the still air, "were at that altar with him. Why are you here now?" Amara took a trembling step forward. "Because everything you think you saw, everything he told me, it's a lie. The wedding, the pregnancy, the money, all of it was planned to trap you." Kelechi's eyes narrowed. "Start from the beginning," he said, "and no riddles, please." Amara nodded, her hands shaking as she wrung her soaked veil. "I met Malcolm 2 years ago at a charity event in Abuja. He introduced himself as a logistics investor helping health startups expand into West Africa. He told me he was divorced, said his wife had left him after losing their baby. He was charming, generous, confident, everything I thought I wanted. 6 months ago, he told me he was finalizing an annulment and that once his business stabilized, we'd marry." Naomi's lips tightened, but she didn't interrupt. "2 months ago," Amara continued, "he started changing. He took calls in whispers. He had me sign documents I didn't understand, saying they were partnership forms for our new company. When I asked questions, he'd tell me I was too emotional to handle business matters. Then last week I saw an email on his laptop. It was addressed to someone named Chike, his cousin. It mentioned a hospital, a trust, and something about needing your signature before the 8th. That's when I realized he wasn't divorced at all." Kelechi leaned forward. "What did the email say exactly?" "It said, and I remember his words, 'Once she signs the incapacitation papers, we'll have full control before the trust matures. I'll keep her occupied with the hospital delay. You prepare the legal shell.'" Amara took a shaky breath. "He said something about an 80 million payout." Naomi felt her stomach twist. The number echoed again in her mind, like thunder rolling back. "He wanted to take it all," she said quietly. "Everything Mariam left for the clinics." Amara nodded. "He told me after tonight's wedding, we'd fly to Dubai to finalize the papers. But at the reception, his cousin gave him a brown envelope. I saw the seal. It said, 'Bluewell Trust.' I asked him what it was. He told me to stop asking or I'd end up like you." She turned to Naomi, eyes wide with fear. "He said you were sick in the head, that you'd ruined his business and tried to blackmail him. But when I saw the live stream cut off, when he disappeared with his cousin, I followed him. I heard him on the phone saying, 'She'll sign tonight, one way or another.' That's why I came." Jumoke crossed her arms, disbelief and outrage mingling. "So, you helped him marry another woman while his wife was in hospital, and now you want forgiveness?" Amara shook her head, tears falling freely. "No, I want to make it right. I didn't know until it was too late. He used me, just like he's used everyone." Kelechi opened his folder again, flipping to the back. "If what you're saying is true, we can use your testimony to file for an injunction tonight. The court can freeze the assets before he makes another move." Amara's eyes darted toward the door. "You don't have time. He's not giving up. His cousin Chicky has a man at the hospital, someone in administration. They're arranging a fake transfer to a private facility in Ikoyi at 3 a.m. He'll make it look like you were moved for treatment, but it's a setup. Once you're sedated, he'll get your fingerprint on a signing pad. Then it's over." Naomi's heart raced. "How do you know this?" "I heard him," Amara said, trembling. "He told his driver to prepare an ambulance, and he mentioned a bribe to the night supervisor." Jumoke slammed her hand on the table. "Over my dead body, will anyone move her from this ward tonight?" Kelechi paced to the window. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the hospital compound outside was wrapped in a wet haze. The security gate flickered under a dim lamp. "We can't rely on that protective order alone," he said. "If they use forged paperwork, by the time the police verify it, she could be gone." Naomi inhaled slowly, her voice calm but steely. "Then we leave before they come." Kelechi turned. "Tonight?" "Yes," Naomi said. "We have to move before 3 a.m. You said the trust office opens at 6. If we get there early, we can sign before they intercept us." Amara bit her lip. "They'll be watching the exits." Jumoke's mind was already working. "There's an old maintenance route," she said, "used during renovations last year. It leads out through the laundry wing. No cameras there." Kelechi nodded quickly. "We'll take it. I'll arrange a car." Amara hesitated. "He has men watching the main gates. If they see your lawyer or the nurse leaving with you, they'll know." Naomi's voice cut through. "Then we don't all leave together." Everyone looked at her. "I'll go alone with Amara," she said. "They won't suspect her. She's supposed to be on his side. Jumoke, you can stay and stall anyone who asks about me. Kelechi, meet us outside the Blue Well Tower before dawn." Kelechi frowned. "That's too risky. If he finds you—" "He already did," Naomi interrupted, her eyes unwavering. "And I'm still here." Amara stared at her, guilt flickering behind her fear. "Are you sure you can trust me?" Naomi looked her dead in the eyes. "I don't. But I trust your fear. It's louder than your lies right now." That broke something in Amara. She looked away, ashamed. Jumoke fetched Naomi's clothes from the locker, a faded Ankara wrapper and a loose blue blouse. "Change quickly," she said. "If anyone asks, you were discharged early. I'll sign the log." Naomi's movements were steady, purposeful. Every rustle of fabric felt like reclaiming her strength. The IV line came off. The hospital gown dropped into a bin. The woman in the mirror was pale but determined, her eyes no longer dazed, her face wet with rain and resolve. Kelechi scribbled on a notepad and handed it to Jumoke. "This is the number of my partner at the firm. If anything happens, call him immediately. The name's Dapo Awolowo. He'll send police support." Jumoke nodded, sliding it into her pocket. "Go. I'll handle the night supervisor." Naomi slung her small purse across her shoulder, tucking her passport deep inside. Amara opened the door a crack, peering into the dim corridor. The hum of distant machines filled the silence. "Clear," she whispered. They slipped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered. At the nurse's desk, 2 attendants laughed quietly over a phone screen, oblivious. Amara led Naomi toward the service elevator, her heels clicking softly against the tiles. When the elevator doors opened, a faint metallic creak echoed down the corridor. Naomi's breath caught. It wasn't from the elevator. Someone was walking toward them. They froze. A tall silhouette emerged from the far end of the hall, a man in a dark suit, holding a clipboard. His voice was low, but smooth. "Mrs. Cole, the ambulance is ready. We've come to transfer you now." Naomi's pulse quickened. The man's badge caught the light. "Medlink Services." "Not now," Amara said quickly, stepping forward. "The doctor said we'd wait till morning." The man smiled thinly. "Orders changed. Your husband signed the release himself." Naomi glanced at Amara. Her hand trembled, but her eyes were steady. "He's lying," she whispered. The man's expression hardened. "Please, ma'am, don't make this difficult. We have your chart. It's for your own safety." Naomi took a slow step back. "Then show me the paperwork." The man reached into his coat, but instead of papers, his hand came out holding a syringe. Amara gasped. Before he could move, Naomi grabbed the walker and swung it with all her strength. The metal clanged against his wrist. The syringe flew and skittered across the floor. Amara screamed. The man cursed, clutching his arm. Jumoke's voice erupted down the hall. "Security!" The man bolted, disappearing around the corner as guards came running from the stairwell. Naomi sagged against the wall, breath shaking. Within seconds, the night supervisor, startled and pale, arrived. "What's going on here?" Jumoke pointed to the floor. "He tried to inject her. Where is your security protocol?" The supervisor's mouth opened. But before he could speak, one of the guards bent and picked up the syringe. His face blanched. "This isn't hospital issue. It's labeled propofol." Kelechi burst into the corridor, phone to his ear. "Police are on their way. We have to move. Now!" Amara turned to Naomi. "He knows we're on to him." Naomi straightened, voice calm but cold. "Then let him know we're not running anymore." She looked at Kelechi. "Get the car. We leave through the laundry exit." As the security team began sealing off the ward, Jumoke hugged Naomi fiercely. "Go and finish what you started," she said. "For Mariam, for all of us." Naomi nodded. "I will." And as the elevator doors closed on them, Naomi, Amara, and Kelechi, somewhere outside under the gray dawn of Lagos, a black SUV's engine roared to life, headlights slicing through the mist. Inside, Malcolm Cole made a call, his voice low and dangerous. "Plan A failed," he said. "Initiate Plan B before sunrise." The black SUV glided through the soaked streets of Lagos like a predator scenting blood. Inside, Malcolm Cole sat in the back seat, phone pressed to his ear, voice clipped and furious. "Check every exit. Laundry, maintenance, delivery, everything. If she leaves that hospital before 3 a.m., I want her stopped. No mistakes this time." On the other end, Chike's voice crackled with static. "Relax, cousin. The paperwork's ready. One fingerprint and it's over." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "You said that before. She's getting help from that junior lawyer." Chike chuckled darkly. "And from your bride, apparently." Malcolm's hand clenched around the phone. "Amara? She's been calling strange numbers. If she's talking, we'll silence her before dawn." The line went dead. Malcolm looked out the tinted window. The rain was easing, the city gleaming like wet glass. Somewhere out there, his wife, the woman he had written off, was fighting back. His lips curved into a thin smile. "Not for long," he muttered. Back inside the hospital, Naomi, Amara, and Kelechi slipped through the dim laundry corridor. The air smelled of detergent and damp linen. The hum of industrial dryers masked their footsteps. Kelechi whispered, "Stay close. The exit should be behind that last gate." Naomi's heart pounded in her chest, every sound magnified. She could feel Amara trembling beside her. "Are you sure about this?" Amara whispered. "No," Naomi said quietly. "But waiting means dying slowly." They reached the rusted gate. Kelechi forced it open with a metallic groan. The alley outside was narrow, half flooded, lined with stacked crates. A stray cat darted away into the shadows. "Car's 2 streets over," Kelechi said. "My driver's waiting with the engine running. We move fast and quiet." They crept through the alley, but halfway across, headlights swept over them, a van turning the corner. Kelechi froze. "Down," he hissed. They ducked behind the crates. The van rolled slowly past, the logo MedLink Services stenciled on its side. The same name on the fake medic's badge. Inside, a voice barked orders into a radio. "No sign of them yet. Check the back wing again." As the van disappeared, Naomi exhaled. "He's closing in," Kelechi nodded. "We still have time. Let's go." They reached the street. A silver Toyota waited at the corner, headlights dimmed. The driver, a lean man in a cap, opened the door. "Mr. Obi?" "Drive," Kelechi said. They sped off, tires hissing on wet asphalt. The city lights blurred past, vendors packing up stalls, puddles reflecting neon signs. Naomi stared out the window, her mind racing. He must have known about Mariam's trust long before I did. Maybe from her will. Kelechi nodded grimly. He was intercepting your emails. That's how he knew. Amara hugged herself, guilt heavy in her voice. He made me help. He said it was for charity, that you didn't deserve the money because you'd lost focus. Naomi's lips tightened. Focus? He thought greed was vision. They fell silent for a while. The hum of the road filled the car, each bump echoing their fear. Then Amara leaned forward suddenly. "Turn left here," she shouted. The driver glanced back. "Why?" "Because that black SUV has been behind us since we left the hospital." Everyone turned. 2 vehicles back, a pair of headlights burned through the mist. "Step on it," Kelechi ordered. The driver accelerated, weaving through side streets. The SUV followed, matching every turn. Naomi clutched the seat. "They're not going to stop." Amara looked back, eyes wide. "They'll force us off the road." Kelechi pulled out his phone. "Calling Dapo now!" But before he could dial, the SUV surged forward, ramming their bumper. The impact jolted everyone forward. The driver cursed, fighting to control the wheel. "They're trying to spin us." Naomi's head hit the seat. Sparks of pain flashed behind her eyes. Amara screamed. The SUV rammed again, harder this time. Kelechi yelled, "Hang on!" The Toyota swerved violently and crashed through a market stall. Crates of oranges exploded across the road. The car skidded to a stop, smoke hissing from the hood. Silence. Then the sound of boots hitting puddles. "They're coming," Naomi whispered. Kelechi reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small flash drive. "If anything happens, take this," he said, shoving it into Naomi's hand. "It's Mariam's full trust documentation, proof of ownership, and the clause details." Naomi shook her head. I'm not dying here either," he said. "But if they catch me, they'll search me first." Amara's voice broke. "They're here!" 2 men in black approached, guns visible beneath their coats. One banged on the window. "Out! All of you!" The driver raised his hands slowly. Kelechi looked at Naomi. "When I open the door, run." "No." "Run!" He kicked the door open and lunged at the nearest man. The gun went off, echoing through the street. Naomi screamed. Kelechi grabbed the man's wrist and twisted. Another shot fired into the air. Amara pulled Naomi toward the side alley. "Go!" Kelechi shouted. They ran, splashing through puddles, dodging between shacks. Behind them, gunfire cracked again. A scream, Kelechi's driver. Naomi stumbled, but Amara caught her. "This way!" she gasped, pointing toward a flickering sign. Blessing Gas Depot. They ducked behind stacked cylinders. Naomi's breath came ragged. "We can't stay here." Amara peered around the corner. "They're dragging Kelechi. Oh God, they're putting him in the SUV." Naomi's stomach turned. "Alive?" "I think so." Naomi clutched the flash drive. "Then we still have a chance." Amara frowned. "What do you mean?" "They won't kill him until they know where this is." She held up the drive. "So they'll bring him to their base, and that's where we'll finish this." Amara stared at her. "You want to follow them? You're mad." Naomi's eyes burned with a new kind of fire. "He took my peace. He took my trust. He won't take my voice." She stepped out from the shadows, rain soaking her face. In the distance, the SUV's taillights glowed like red eyes disappearing into the city. Naomi turned to Amara. "Find a phone. Call Dapo. Tell him where they're going. I'm ending this tonight." Amara grabbed her arm. "Naomi, wait! You'll get killed!" Naomi looked back once. "Maybe, but at least I'll die standing." And with that, she vanished into the Lagos night. chasing the same men who thought she would never rise again. The streets of Lagos glimmered under wet streetlights, slick with rain and danger. Naomi's sandals slapped against the pavement as she followed the red taillights of the black SUV, her breath visible in the damp night. Every nerve in her body screamed to stop, but something stronger, something born of betrayal and survival, kept her moving. She ducked behind a line of parked Okadas when the SUV slowed near a deserted warehouse in the Apapa docks. Containers stacked high like sleeping beasts surrounded the compound. A guard waved the SUV through a half-open gate, and it disappeared inside. Naomi crouched low, gripping the flash drive like a weapon. She whispered to herself, "Mariam, give me strength." Inside the warehouse, Kalichi was tied to a chair, his lip bleeding, his glasses cracked. Chaik circled him with a smirk, the kind that came easy to men who thought they were smarter than everyone else. "You lawyers think you're clever," Cheki said, kicking the chair leg. "But you forget, this is Nigeria. Power doesn't come from paper. It comes from people like me." Kalechi spat blood and glared. "Power dies with men like you." Chiki laughed. "We'll see." Malcolm entered then, drenched from the rain but composed, his suit immaculate. "Where is she?" Chiki shrugged. "Gone. Probably hiding under a bed somewhere." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "She's not the type to hide." He turned to Kalichi. "Where is she heading?" Kalechi said nothing. Malcolm crouched, eyes cold. "You think you're her hero? You're a messenger, nothing more." He motioned to one of his men. "Get his phone. We'll find her ourselves." The man rifled through Kalechi's pockets, tossing out his wallet and cracked phone. But before he could check the messages, a metallic clatter echoed near the door. Everyone froze. A small wrench rolled across the floor and hit a barrel. Malcolm's eyes snapped to the sound. "Check that." The guard moved forward cautiously. He barely rounded the corner before a heavy pipe swung out of the shadows and knocked him flat. Naomi stepped into the light, eyes blazing. "Looking for me?" Malcolm's surprise lasted only a second. "So the ghost walks." Naomi lifted the pipe, trembling, but defiant. "Let him go." He smirked. "You won't hit me." "I already did worse," she said, recalling the walker's swing that broke his fake medic's plan. Chaik chuckled, drawing his gun. "This isn't a movie, madam. Drop it before you regret being alive." Naomi's voice didn't waver. "You regret underestimating me first." At that moment, headlights flared through the gate. Multiple cars, engines roaring. A police siren wailed. Malcolm's face twisted. "How?" Outside, a commanding voice shouted, "Lagos State Police! Drop your weapons!" Chaik spun toward the gate. Naomi darted forward, swinging the pipe. It struck his wrist. The gun clattered away. Kalichi kicked the chair forward, slamming into Chaiki's knees. Malcolm lunged at Naomi, grabbing her arm. The flash drive flew from her grasp and skidded across the floor. Both dove for it, hands grappling. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "Without that file, the trust dies tonight." Naomi met his eyes, strength rising from somewhere deeper than fear. "Then I'll rebuild it with my own hands." She twisted free and shoved him backward into a stack of barrels. The flash drive rolled beneath the table. Police stormed in, guns drawn. "Freeze!" Chaik tried to run but was tackled. Malcolm staggered up, smoothing his shirt like pride could still save him. "Officers," he said smoothly, "this woman, my wife, broke in and assaulted us. She's unstable." "Lies!" Naomi shouted. "He forged medical orders and tried to have me sedated for a fake signature." One officer held up the syringe recovered from the crash site earlier. "We know. Your name's all over the fake documents, Mr. Cole." Malcolm's face drained of color. Kelechi, freed by an officer, retrieved the flash drive and handed it to Naomi. "Safe now," he said breathlessly. She exhaled for the first time in hours. "Let's finish this." By dawn, the sky blushed pale gold over Victoria Island. Naomi, flanked by Kelechi and Amara, walked into the marble lobby of Bluewell Tech Trust office. Security escorted them past reporters already gathering outside. Inside the glass conference room, the trustee, a stately woman named Mrs. Bancole, stood waiting. "Ms. Johnson," she said warmly. "We were worried." Naomi placed the flash drive on the table. "Here's every document, verified." Mrs. Bancole nodded, inserting it into her laptop. After a moment, she looked up. "Everything's in order. Congratulations. The trust is now fully in your name." Naomi exhaled shakily. Kelechi smiled faintly. Amara sat in a corner, quiet but relieved. Mrs. Bancole slid a pen forward. "One final step, Ms. Johnson. The public pledge." Naomi took the pen. Cameras flashed outside the glass wall. Her hand trembled once, then steadied. She signed. Then she spoke, voice carrying through the room. "This trust will rebuild clinics, educate girls, and protect the next generation from men who think kindness is weakness. To every woman watching, you are enough, and you have the right to stand tall." Applause filled the room. But across town, in a holding cell at Alagbon, Malcolm sat alone, his hands cuffed. He leaned back against the wall, smiling faintly despite the bruises. "You can take a man's freedom," he murmured, "but not his secrets." A guard frowned. "What did you say?" Malcolm looked up, eyes glinting. "She's still missing one file, the offshore clause. Let's see how long her peace lasts without it." The morning sun over Victoria Island painted the city in gold, but for Naomi, it felt like dawn after a storm that had stolen sleep from the world. The Bluewell Tech Trust signing was done. Cameras had captured her trembling voice and rising courage. Her name was now on documents that symbolized something greater than wealth, redemption. She should have felt peace. But the words Malcolm had spat before the police dragged him away. "She's still missing one file," rattled around her mind like loose stones. "An offshore clause," she murmured, staring at the Bluewell folder on her lap in the firm's waiting room. What did he mean by that? Kelechi looked up from his phone. "You're still thinking about him?" "I'm thinking about what's missing." Mrs. Bancole, the trustee, re-entered the room, a tablet in hand. "The signing is verified," she said, "but there is something unusual in the system. A linked account that hasn't been reconciled since last year." Naomi frowned. "Linked to what?" "The trust," Mrs. Bancole said carefully. "It's labeled Project Goma. It's stored offshore, Cayman Islands. Ms. Adebayo set it up as a continuation fund. It activates only if the main trust owner completes an additional clause." "What clause?" Kelechi asked. The trustee hesitated. "It requires a co-signature by a second trustee Mariam appointed years ago. His name is Chaik Cole." Naomi's heart froze. "Chaik? Malcolm's cousin?" "Yes," Mrs. Bancole said grimly. "Apparently he was supposed to help her channel the funds internationally. But after Mariam's death, the second trustee vanished. Without his digital signature, Project Goma remains locked, along with $40 million meant for expansion into East Africa." Kelechi rubbed his temples. "That's the offshore clause Malcolm was gloating about. He knows Chiki was involved. If Chiki signed or moved anything illegally, we can't access those funds unless we track him down." Naomi sat back, the magnitude sinking in. 40 million more, hidden, waiting, stolen. And somewhere, Chick was free. Meanwhile, in a dim apartment in Festac, Chick was nursing a bruised wrist, his hand wrapped in gauze. A woman brought him tea and watched him grimly. "Your cousin is in custody," she said. "You're on every news station." Chaik scowled. "He's sloppy. Always was. I told him not to make it personal with that woman." "She's not that woman anymore," the woman said. "She's the face of Bluewell now." Chaik laughed softly. "Faces fade. Systems last." He pulled out a small drive from his pocket, twirling it between his fingers. "They think they have everything. But this holds the real control. Offshore key, trustee encryption. Only I can open Project Goma." "Then why are you hiding?" she asked. He smiled thinly. "Because the moment I open it, everyone will come for me, including her." At the firm, Naomi and Kelechi studied the documents for hours. The rain had started again, soft against the glass. Amara sat quietly, scrolling through social media. Bluewell's press video had already gone viral. Millions of views, comments calling Naomi the woman who fought back, but Naomi barely noticed the fame. "If Chaik's signature is required," she said, "we'll never complete Mariam's mission." Kelechi tapped the desk. "Unless we find proof that he already accessed the funds illegally. That could give the court authority to revoke his co-signature rights." Amara suddenly looked up. "Wait, I saw something." Both turned toward her. "When I lived with Malcolm," Amara said, "Chaik came around often. One night he forgot a folder in the living room. I saw a map with a note that said, Goma Logistics, Storage Hub, Badagry Border. Could that be related?" Kelechi's eyes widened. "Badagry is close to the port routes Mariam's NGO used for shipments. If they used it to hide assets." Naomi stood. "Then we find that hub." "Naomi," Kelechi warned, "you just survived an assassination attempt. You need rest, not another chase." She shook her head. "If Mariam trusted me with her legacy, I can't rest while half of it is still in the hands of thieves." Amara rose beside her. "Then I'm coming too." Naomi looked at her. "You don't owe me that." "I owe myself redemption," Amara said softly. "And I owe you truth." Kelechi sighed. "Fine. But we're not walking into a trap unprepared. I'll call Dapo and request police backup. We'll go tonight." That night, the rain fell harder, turning the highway to Badagry into a shimmering river of headlights. Their convoy of 2 vehicles moved carefully through the darkness. Naomi and Amara in the lead car, Kelechi following close behind. Amara broke the silence. "Do you ever think about forgiving him? Malcolm?" Naomi's gaze stayed on the road. "Forgiveness isn't a favor I give. It's a boundary I draw. He can't live in my head anymore." Amara nodded slowly. "I envy that strength." "You have it," Naomi said. "You just haven't needed it this loud before." They fell quiet again, the wipers thudding rhythmically. Ahead, the turnoff to the old border road appeared, unlit and empty. They followed it until the first car lights reflected off corrugated metal fencing. A small warehouse sat at the end, half hidden by palm trees. The sign faded. Goma Exports, Ltd. Kelechi's car parked beside theirs. He stepped out, flashlight in hand. "This is the place." Amara shivered. "It's too quiet." They approached the gate. Naomi pushed gently. It creaked open. Inside, dust and cobwebs blanketed everything. But beneath the silence was something else, the faint hum of a generator. Kelechi frowned. "Someone's here." They moved deeper inside, following the sound. Behind a stack of sealed crates, a door glowed faintly with blue light from a screen. Naomi's pulse quickened. She stepped inside and froze. On a steel table sat a laptop, open, the Bluewell logo spinning on the screen. And standing beside it, typing calmly, was Chike. He didn't turn around. "I was expecting the police," he said, voice cold. "Not you." Naomi's voice was steady. "You're the only loose end left." He smiled faintly. "Loose ends tie the strongest knots." Kelechi aimed his flashlight at the laptop. "You accessed Project Goma?" "Of course," Chike said. "I built the encryption with Mariam. She was brilliant but naive. Thought people would keep promises." Naomi stepped forward. "Then finish what she started. Co-sign the release and end this." Chike finally turned to face her, his eyes sharp and cruel. "And hand over $40 million to a woman who still believes in happy endings? No, Naomi, the world doesn't work that way." He pulled a gun from his coat and pointed it at Kelechi. "Back away," Amara gasped. "Please don't." "Quiet," Chick barked. "You think I'd let all that money slip into your moral crusade? I'll vanish with it tonight, and you'll go back to being a sob story for YouTube." Naomi's jaw tightened. "If you kill us, you'll never escape. The system will trace every—" Chike laughed. "Who said I'm killing you? I just need time." He backed toward the door, still aiming the gun. But as he reached the threshold, headlights blazed through the windows, cutting into the room like white knives. "Drop your weapon!" The police had arrived. Chike cursed, turning toward the lights. Naomi seized the moment. She grabbed a nearby crate lid and swung it with all her strength. The lid struck his arm, sending the gun flying. Officers stormed in, shouting orders. Within seconds, Chike was on the ground, pinned. Naomi stood over him, chest heaving. "You were right about one thing," she said. "The world doesn't work that way. Not anymore." Hours later, as dawn broke again, Naomi sat on the hood of the police jeep outside the warehouse. Kelechi walked over, handing her a report. "It's over," he confessed. "Mariam's offshore fund is safe." Naomi looked up at the lightening sky. "No," she said quietly. "It's just beginning." Kelechi smiled faintly. "And what will you do now, Ms. Johnson?" She looked toward the horizon. "Rebuild. Expand the clinics. Train women. Save lives." That's what Mariam wanted. Amara joined them, her expression softer than it had been in days. "And Malcolm?" she asked. Naomi exhaled. "He'll answer for his crimes, but I won't live in the shadow of his punishment." She turned to face them both, eyes fierce but peaceful. "We've been broken, but broken things still shine." The court hearing took place 2 weeks later in a grand courtroom in Lagos Island. Outside, a crowd had gathered. Journalists, NGO volunteers, and ordinary people who'd followed Naomi Johnson's story from the very first viral headline. "Billionaire lady's husband plots to steal her $80 million trust. Ends up in handcuffs." Inside, Naomi sat beside Kelechi, calm but resolute. Her tailored Ankara dress of deep blue and gold shimmered under the light. It wasn't wealth she wore. It was dignity restored. Malcolm was led in, handcuffed, flanked by 2 officers. He looked thinner now, his confidence stripped down to brittle arrogance. Behind him, Amara sat quietly, subpoenaed as a key witness. When the judge entered, silence swept through the room like a tide. "All rise." The hearing began. The prosecutor recounted every crime: fraud, forgery, attempted assault, conspiracy to commit identity theft, and medical tampering. Evidence flashed on a large monitor: fake hospital forms, bank wire transfers, even video from the warehouse raid. Malcolm kept his face blank until the footage showed Naomi standing in front of him, holding the steel pipe. Defiant, trembling, alive. His eyes flickered with something that almost looked like shame. Almost. Then it was Naomi's turn to speak. She rose slowly. The court's murmurs quieted as she faced the judge. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady, "I didn't come here today for revenge. I came because too many women like me never get the chance to stand where I'm standing, to tell the truth about what was done to them and still walk out free." She glanced at Malcolm. "I loved a man who promised to build a future with me. Instead, he tried to bury mine. But what he didn't understand is that storms don't drown strong women. They wash the dirt off their destiny." A hush filled the room. Even the judge looked moved. Naomi continued, "I don't want his money or his pity. I want his actions to be a warning. To every husband, business partner, or friend who hides betrayal behind love, your lies may bloom for a season, but truth always blossoms last." She turned to the gallery where cameras flashed, and to the women watching from their homes, their hospital beds, or their small shops. "Don't let anyone convince you that silence is safety. Speak, fight, heal." The courtroom erupted in applause until the judge raised his hand. "Order." When the judge delivered the verdict, his voice carried both gravity and finality. "Malcolm Cole, this court finds you guilty on all counts. You are hereby sentenced to 25 years imprisonment without parole." Malcolm's composure cracked. "Naomi," he called out, but she didn't turn. The officers led him away, his voice fading behind the closing doors. Amara's quiet sobs filled the silence that followed. Naomi walked over to her, gently taking her hand. "You helped expose him," she said softly. "Don't let guilt chain you longer than justice already has." Amara nodded through tears. "Thank you for not hating me." "I don't have space for hate," Naomi replied. "Only purpose." Weeks later, under a bright morning sun, the new Mariam Adebayo Women's Health Center opened in Surulere. The courtyard was filled with mothers, nurses, and children in colorful dresses. The new clinic bore a simple inscription over its gates: "From betrayal to blessing, for every woman who refused to break." Naomi stood at the podium, dressed in a flowing cream gown, the crowd's cheers washing over her. Kalichi stood behind her, proud but modest. Amara was there too, volunteering quietly among the staff. Naomi smiled at the cameras and began to speak. "When pain becomes your teacher, strength becomes your language," she said. "This center isn't just built with funds. It's built with faith, with every story that said you can't, and every woman who answered, 'Watch me.'" The crowd clapped, some wiping tears. A journalist shouted from the front, "Ms. Johnson, what would you say to the man who tried to destroy you if he were watching this broadcast right now?" Naomi paused, her gaze drifting toward the horizon. "I'd say thank you," she said simply. "Because what you buried, God watered, and what you meant for evil became my rebirth." The audience erupted in applause. Kalichi leaned closer. "That was perfect." Naomi smiled faintly. "No, it's just honest." Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Naomi stood alone in the courtyard of the new clinic. Children's laughter echoed from the nearby playground. The air smelled of hibiscus and fresh paint. She reached into her purse and pulled out the flash drive, the same one Kelechi had handed her that night. The metal was warm from her touch. She whispered, "We did it, Mariam." A nurse walked up with a warm smile. "Ma, there's a call from the States, from a woman named Diana Johnson." Naomi's face lit up. "My mother," she said, taking the phone. When her mother's voice came through, it trembled with joy. "Baby, I saw the news. I told you, storms don't last forever." Naomi smiled, eyes wet. "No, Mama, but they sure teach you how to dance in the rain." Across the Atlantic, in a prison cell, Malcolm sat staring at a tiny TV mounted on the wall. Naomi's face filled the screen.
radiant, unbroken, triumphant. He switched it off and sat in silence. For the first time, the man who thought he controlled every move realized the game was over, and that the woman he had underestimated had rewritten the rules. Outside the clinic, a banner fluttered gently in the wind. It read, "The greatest revenge is rebuilding stronger than ever." And as the camera of life pulled back on Naomi standing in the golden light, the message was clear. The storm had ended, but her story had just begun.